And it's the dumbest bill in America, and it is from the state of Vermont. It's House Bill 688, introduced by Representative Timothy Briglin of Vermont. Representative Briglin has introduced House Bill 688, which is the Green New Deal for Vermont. Imagine that, the Green New Deal for Vermont. And here is what it says. A bill that would legally mandate the state to meet carbon emission reduction targets in the coming years. But wait, it's different from the Green New Deal in this way. It allows individuals to sue the government if the government fails to meet those carbon emission standards set forth in House Bill 688. Imagine that. You can sue the government of Vermont, you can sue the state if they don't meet these greenhouse gas emissions. So imagine how many companies like the Sierra, or organizations like the Sierra Club and the League of Conservation Voters, as well as many other individuals, are going to sue the state of Vermont, basically bringing it to its knees because they want the Green New Deal so incredibly badly. And we've actually had a clip on the Green New Deal before from South Park, and we've done this in previous podcasts, and because we're making fun of these folks who basically think that we're not making progress in the United States, which of course we are the one country in the world that is making enormous progress in reducing CO2 emissions. But the Green New Deal basically is about a complete takeover. Nonetheless, South Park is making fun of these folks in this clip. You gotta see it to believe it. It's really funny, and here it is.
Oh, hello there. You must be the new neighbors.
Yes, that's right. We're the Broflovskis.
Welcome to San Francisco. I'm Peter Thompson. This is my wife, Nancy Jarvis, and our son, Brian Thompson Jarvis.
We noticed your hybrid out front. That's a V-Series, right?
Wow, so everyone here drives a hybrid, huh?
Oh, of course. We're a little more progressive and ahead of the curve here in San Francisco. Anyway, I'm sure you'll find it much better here.
We're just a little bit more protective of our environment here in San Francisco.
Yeah, we sure are.
Yeah, so they're so much more protective of their environment in San Francisco. That South Park clip just kills me. And of course, now Vermont's going to join with California in trying to do the same thing with the Green New Deal. And of course, that particular clip in South Park is them basically carbon capturing the methane gas that they expel from their bodies. Well, part of the Green New Deal in Vermont, in this particular bill, the bill is House Bill 688. Part of the deal is they want to carbon capture, of course, CO2 emissions and any emissions that are bad, of course, for the environment, in addition to reducing emissions. So, as you can imagine, they're actually looking for eventually negative emissions reductions over a period of time. In other words, they want the reduction of emissions to exceed the actual emissions, which, of course, is absolutely going to bring the state of Vermont's economy to its knees, without question. So here's part of what the bill says in the actual text of the bill. It says, according to the Vermont Agency of Natural Resources, the adverse impacts of climate change in Vermont include an increase in the severity and frequency of extreme weather events, a rise in vector-borne diseases, including Lyme disease, more frequent bacteria blooms, adverse impacts to forest and agricultural soils, forest and crop damage, shorter and irregular sugaring seasons, a reduction in seasonal snow cover, and variable and rising average temperatures that result in uncertain and less snowfall. So, Vermont believes that by passing this bill, which also gives the individual the right to sue the state for not meeting the ridiculous targets of this bill, that they're going to have more snowfalls, more predictable snowfalls, less Lyme disease, less algae blooms, and greener forests. And here's the thing. The United States of America, through fracking and through natural gas, has absolutely positively reduced carbon emissions. And they've done so in a dramatic way since 2000, without question. And that's because of fracking. And yet, the countries in the world that are, without question, polluting the environment with massive amounts of CO2 emissions, as well as polluting the water and the ground, India and China. And many other countries, of course, throughout the world. And many of those countries are poor countries, but certainly these developing countries, like India and rapidly developing countries, and China, which is by all measures developed and developing even faster, is polluting the earth at incredible speeds. And so these folks in Vermont, it's like, why don't they take their activism and go to China? And while they're in China, why don't they just go and, I don't know, convince President Xi that they need to help him reduce carbon emissions there? Or why don't they believe in nuclear energy? Because after all, nuclear energy is the only energy that we're aware of that is baseload energy. Baseload energy is that energy that provides power no matter what happens, right? So you don't have sun, you don't have power with solar. You don't have wind, you don't have power with wind power and wind turbines. But with baseload power, you have power all the time. Nuclear power doesn't provide any CO2 emissions. None whatsoever. And what's more is there are industries out there in the nuclear industry that are able to get and use the old nuclear waste, right? The spent nuclear waste that normally would be lasting for 1,000+ years, thousands of years, and you put it in a nuclear waste site. Well, now we realize that we can repurpose that waste to power modern nuclear reactors and have virtually no waste whatsoever. So no emissions and potentially zero or near zero waste. And base load power so you can have reliable power. That is so important. So we have to look at this. So we have this guy, and his name is Timothy Briglin, who's put in House Bill 688 in Vermont, which is actually, it's not enough for them to shut down their economy with a Green New Deal like AOC, but of course it's Vermont. But in addition to that, what does he want to do? He wants to give you the right to sue the state of Vermont. And, you know, there's so many other things that we could be doing, like nuclear energy, to be able to reduce CO2 emissions and make our air cleaner, make our water cleaner, and make our soils cleaner. Without question, this is what we could be doing. This is what we should be doing. And unfortunately, there are folks who just don't want to believe, because they don't want to believe that there's any progress in our CO2 emissions reduction. And they don't want to believe it because they have adopted this Green New Deal mantra as a religion. It's a religion to them, without question. And it's really hard to argue with someone who has taken on a cause like the Green New Deal as a religion and as fact. And of course, part of their argument in the Green New Deal is to say, well, you don't believe in science, that's the problem. But if you actually talk about nuclear energy and you talk to them and show them the science, their heads explode. And they're like, no, we can only use wind and we can only use solar. So imagine Vermont, these beautiful green mountains. If you've been there, it is beautiful. It's a beautiful state. The mountains are incredible. It's a green that you just don't see very many places. And they're full of trees, and the mountains are beautiful. Imagine basically clear-cutting the tops of the mountains so that you can build wind turbines. Imagine that. Imagine how stupid that is. Any reasonably educated person would agree that would destroy the environment. So this is the classic far-left progressive argument that you have to destroy the environment in order to save it. And I'm sorry, we already know what the solution is, and it is nuclear power, and it is modern nuclear power, not the 3 Mile Island nuclear power, which I know everybody's going to bring up, but the modern nuclear power, which uses the modern and very advanced nuclear reactors to use spent fuel from old nuclear reactors to power the modern nuclear reactors. That is the answer. So that is the dumbest bill in America. And this is Mark Fisher with Mark the Millennials. Thank you for joining Mark the Millennials with the dumbest bill in America. I want to thank Christopher Hopkins, our assistant producer, Adam Couture, our producer. And of course, we don't have any millennials today, so it's just me. Join us next time on Mark and the Millennials. See you.